Okay, I have to say, if you're not watching this show, you are missing out on some comedy gold. We just witnessed relationship goals, and that's a joke if you didn't realize. But holy, so there's this moment that is probably going to be overlooked in this episode because we get a new fusion, we get some gambling fun, but there's this dude, Tony. He's this blonde guy who's with the blue-haired girl, who I'm pretty sure is the same one who was eating the squid ice cream a couple episodes back, but ultimately Tiana, she ends up just ruining his day, and more or less it's being presented as she's trying to be this nice person who she saw some easy prey to get some money, but most importantly, she was trying to break his gambling habit because she knows exactly what it's like to lose everything to gambling. That's literally her backstory. And in the middle of this conversation, Tiana's telling her, like, you should dump him. He's a failure. He's a horrible person. And she's like, no, I don't give up on people. And then Leon from the previous episode comes in after taking a super serum. And the entire crowd, including Tony was first in line, come barging through, throws her to the ground in order to save his own skin. I didn't catch it initially. I caught it on my second watch when I was grabbing my screenshots here. But holy, the more I rewind to it, the more I find it hilarious because this poor girl, she says Tony in such a way. She's like, Tony? And then she gets thrown to the ground as they're all trying to run for their life. Our boy's trying to climb up the window to save himself. He doesn't even take a second look at her. He's just doing his damnedest to get the hell out of Dodge and save his skin. This show has some unexpected comedy gold, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Now, before we jump any further, gotta mention, we got that full live reaction available on my Patreon, so if you want to see my full uncut thoughts to today's wonderful episode, do head on over there and consider supporting, because I love this show. I think it's criminally underappreciated from people who honestly would normally enjoy a show like this, but for some reason, they just didn't give it an honest shot, because the more I watch it, the more I say I haven't seen anything quite like it. You literally in this episode go gambling. So last week we had arithmetic bare knuckle dueling. Never really expected that. Yes, we have chess boxing in our world, but just the way they took it to that level in this show was absolutely fantastic. This episode we go to a casino, and I mean literally one of our characters has a gambling problem, so I was like, oh, this could be very spicy. And instead of going directly in that way, they said instead, hey, you know how we kind of teased the backstory of this horrible woman who ruined Nick's life? Now we're going to do the same for Leon and see where he ultimately will end up by the end of this episode. And his backstory with his brother, his reason for getting payments from people and screwing him over, you just really understood where the guy was coming from. Similar to last week, it doesn't excuse what he's done, but it definitely explains his actions. And by the end of the episode, you know, I was kind of happy to see Nick actually talk to him like he was a person rather than a caged-in animal, because I honestly thought, you know, he's going to have a very bad life for the rest of his life. He's going to be chained up. His muscle mass is going away. At the very least, let's, you know, bury the hatchet sort of a thing. But I love the fact that they have so much fun with this world that feels so normal on one hand, but then it's so magical on the other. So in a world with magic, you would suspect that they should probably have some barriers to stop people from looking at other people's cards or manipulating the deck with some telekinesis spell. And the fact that they literally have magical cards that are like coded in something to stop magic from being used on them is so clever, because I wasn't thinking about it, but as soon as they revealed it, I was like, oh, those are the little details that separate the good anime from the average anime. And this show definitely has moments of greatness. Hell, they literally end this episode where you have this cursed demonic sword that literally turned our boy into the monstrosity we saw. The way they deal with it is by using those same cards to kind of like plaster it all over him and the sword, and then they kind of encase it in this icicle prison, and I thought that was just so clever. But honestly, for an episode that was all about seeing Tiana's distrust and her lack of connection, because up until this point, they've really been a group of people who distrust others, and ultimately they built this party in order to keep themselves alive and have a group of similar-minded people. But if we look at Curran and Nick in recent episodes, they really feel like they've kind of become like this. They're kind of tight, they honestly seem like friends. But if you look at it from Tiana's perspective, like, is she really that connected with Nick? No. So it makes total sense that from her point of view, they are just a group of people, and that's why when Leon's about to kill her, being like, hey, if I hurt someone that is his friend, then obviously he'll come running or you'll spill the beans, and he knew damn well that she wasn't lying, given the fact that he could smell that if she was telling the truth, that they are just random people to each other. But by the end of the episode, it definitely feels like they're starting to get the momentum going, so there is a bit more of a connection there. We literally get to see the fusion between her and Nick, and honestly, that was the best out of the two we've seen. Granted, yes, we've only seen 2 fusions. I guess 3 if you consider the fact that Leon also kind of had his own fusion in this episode, but it was just with the sword. But in terms of the current fusion and her fusion, honestly, I kind of like hers. It kind of felt like a little more, in a weird way, kind of had like a Yu-Gi-Oh vibe in terms of some of the magical knights in Yu-Gi-Oh in terms of card designs, and I kind of liked what they did here. It was quick, it was to the point, similar to the last one we've seen. But they definitely don't abuse the fusion, and instead of just making it a cool little visual design that they use for an action scene, they actually use it to get the characters closer connected, which I think goes to serve the characterization that the series is working with. But like I said, this was a great episode. I mean, you never know what you're gonna get. There's been episodes where our girl just goes from restaurant to restaurant eating different foods. We had bare knuckle boxing when they took a math test. We go magical gambling when Tony throws his girl under the bus to save his own skin. Yes, later in the episode, you get to see a moment where it kind of looks like maybe he's protecting her, but girl, you gotta dump this boy. If he throws you even one time when he's running away from the big Tony the Tiger, you gotta just realize you can do better. But that was funny, man. But it's great. I like the characterization. I like that there's a different flair and formula that this show's working with, and even though it doesn't have the sharpest production of the season, they're working with what they got, and they definitely get the humor on point with different visual gags. I think in those key moments, the character designs really pop off. They had some fun with the magic. Actually, initially when they did it was kind of like a prison. They had like this kind of like ice slabs that were wrapped around him, and then he just kind of swatted them away. I kind of made the joke out loud. I was like, man, they should have just like actually done that, but then had like spikes go into him, because then he wouldn't be able to move. And about 3 minutes later, they do exactly that. And I was like, okay, you're even answering my prayers for what I want to see in magical animation. This show just clicks with me. The only thing I would change about it, if I had to say this is the only way to make it better, is the production. It could have been a visually better produced show. It's absolutely an objective statement. There's constantly character dips, animation dips, but does that ruin the episodes for me? No, because the story, the characters, the voice actors, the way that girl said Tony before being thrown to the ground, it's the little moments that really can sell you on a scene. And the fact that each episode is a bundle of those little moments makes me have a smile on my face. Maybe if this was a show airing on Saturday, I wouldn't be talking about it as much. Maybe I wouldn't be hyping it up as much. But I gotta admit, watching it on a Tuesday, this being the only show I watch on Tuesdays, it still surprises me. And I mean, we're 7 episodes in, and I feel like it hasn't even scratched the surface on the wild shenanigans that this show can go with. It's got great characterization, it has funny moments, some really cool action at times, but most importantly, it's a character-driven series that actually knows what it's doing, and I really like what I'm seeing. But of course, I'll pass the torch over to you. What did you think of this episode, especially with that Tony moment? That was some good stuff if you ask me, but thoughts, feelings yourself down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here. Ring that bell so you can get notified when I upload on the channel, and of course, as I mentioned, we got that full live reaction available on my Patreon, and while you're there, you can also get yourself a video shoutout. So today we got Rohit Nair, Darthwin Wright, and Gabby B. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.